Hello there, my name is Brigitte Kaiser and I am the founder of the Earth Custodians movement. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing to our channel. As more and more scientists realize the limitation of Darwinism, science as we know it is coming to an end, slowly but surely.
Do not believe that glyphosate in Argentina is causing increases in cancer. You can drink a whole quart of it and it won't hurt you.
You want to drink some? We have some here.
I'd be happy to, actually, but not really. But
not really.
I know it wouldn't hurt me.
If you say so, I have some glyphosate.
No, I'm not stupid.
Ah, okay. So you.
No, but I know
so it's dangerous, right?
No, people try to commit suicide with it and fail fairly regularly.
Tell the truth.
It's not dangerous to humans. No, it's not.
So you're ready to drink one glass of glyphosate?
No, I'm not an idiot. Interview me about golden rice. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, then it's finished. Then the interview is finished.
That's a good way to solve things.
Yeah. You're a complete jerk.
The good thing with Tulsi Gabbard is that she is the first politician in Congress calling for the ban of the infamous weed killer. Bernie Sanders did it too somehow, but instead of urging for a ban was advocating for label disclosure, which cannot work because still too many consumers believe in the mainstream narratives saying that glyphosate is harmless. Unfortunately, time is running out, as you will see in this presentation. That are now those who are aware who must speak out and fast. Beyond the appeal for the ban of glyphosate, there is still a couple of lingering questions remaining. First, what are we going to do with the lawmakers that got paid to ignore the issue, despite all the studies proving that Monsanto practices amount to a crime against humanity? And second, why isn't Gabbard initiating a class action to send the Monsanto CEOs and scientists who stayed silent over the two last decades, behind bars? Well, the answer sounds pretty straightforward, though the chemical lobby is still all too powerful to allow such an action to happen as rapidly as many would want. But things have definitely changed for Monsanto. Monsanto will eventually collapse, and in its wake more fraudulent science will unravel. The evidence is now way too staggering, but there are so many other deeply unethical corporations out there that should be shut down. Corporate lobbies dictate all the regulations to get their needs satisfied. The saying power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, will forever stand as an absolute truth. When we hear that Monsanto bought a leading bee research firm after being implicated in the bee colony collapse in 2012, if this is not highly suspicious, what is this? Monetarism is a tool for power. The underlying question here is the following: can money ever be used to serve freedom? Or let's rephrase this differently. Has the world really become freer over the centuries?
What we see in the fumigated rural towns is a true genocide, a true ecocide, that is causing an increase in cancer, malformations, disorders of the endocrine system, neurodegenerative disorders, skin diseases, respiratory diseases, fertility disorders, and spontaneous abortions.
There's no state control over what is applied, in what dose is applied, and what type of mixtures are applied. The cocktail of agrochemicals used in this field is unknown to the authorities.
That is exactly where reality shows its true colors. We do live in a society where freedom can be sold to the highest bidder, but rarely experienced genuinely by the crowds. Living free range has nothing to do with freedom. This is like comparing apples and oranges. Talking of the research firm bought by Monsanto, the American Soybean Association CEO stated it quite plainly, that it was a move to help Monsanto and other biotechnology giants squash competition and make profits. After all, who cares about public health? This is a concern from a competition standpoint, he said. This quote is quite troubling because it rather highlights that there is something definitely wrong with the competition premise. The goal of competition is to eliminate all competition. How obvious! Competition for the top really means collusion, and more collusion from the top, the more people suffer. It should be clear by now that competition is inimical to the destiny of humanity. Generally, people interested in alternative news tend to think that biotech is the most tainted sector, but the problem goes well beyond. All scientific fields are equally threatened as corruption has worsened by much, especially over the last 3 to 4 decades. There is nothing new. False reports and studies have exponential side effects, as you may guess, every time they are published, and from their taken for granted, they create more misleading results, and so on endlessly. More importantly, fake studies are biasing the mind of many people unable to argue from their own perspective because lacking critical thinking or merely data impairs the experts when discussing issues.
So my email, so I'm a 24-year-old graduate student in medicinal chemistry / chemical biology. I had been admitted to various different schools. I had multiple offers from individual labs upon finishing my undergrad. The reason I chose this lab was that it seemed to be the best place to propel my career forward, despite it being almost 5,000 kilometers away from my home, my family, and my friends. As I was gearing up for the long and grueling 5 years that were to come, I saw the lab I had chosen for what it really was. The reason this particular lab had so much money and fame was because the professor was forging his results and presented these erroneous results to both private and public funding organizations in an attempt to gather more money for himself. Worse still, when graduate students, postdocs, or lab techs brought the non-consistent data to his attention, he simply would brush them off and tell them to hide the information. It even got so bad that the professor fired a couple of postdocs and graduate students because he thought they weren't going along with his manipulated data. This professor is more concerned in being the rock star of the university and the celebrity of the city than he is in being an honest scientist in the pursuit of truth. Sadly, I think this attitude is pervasive in the minds of many of my colleagues.
Let's face it, academia is holding scientists hostages, and the fact is that so many scientists are disappointed by the prospect of their career. No room for innovation nor authentic creativity, that they end up working for a paycheck as opposed to a greater good. As a result, science as a whole has become a field that needs to be entirely reassessed. We can no longer trust any finding obtained by peer pressure. There is a disaster waiting for us around the corner, waiting to happen, that will strike the scientific monolith at some point, and sooner than we think. This is the end of scientific atheism, and we better fasten our seat belts. Science without philosophy and spirituality can no longer be, and the merging of these three fields is now just a matter of time. There is nothing left to do but embrace the money-free society.
So along with the political control came the corruption of science. Okay, and I've talked a little bit about the stories. There's many, many stories, some in my book and others you may have heard of, where basically independent science is not allowed into this critique of how this system works. What we have is what I call the best science that money can buy. An important part of this is the control of the university system. You know, I talk a lot with university agriculture professors, and they say the students would love to study sustainable farming, but there's no money for it. All the money that the universities have now are coming from the biotech corporations, and they're controlling the research agenda.
What is the cost of the politicization of science?
Well, it's many things. I mean, you know, I don't think any field survives this degree of corruption without losing, if nothing else, its self-respect.